Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm Steven. Sugar is everywhere, and it can often do more harm than good. There are physical, mental, and social aspects to quitting or reducing sugar. And today we're going to give you some tips for each aspect. No sugar in the house.
So when you're trying to quit sugar, you cannot have easy access to sugar. So no cookies, cakes in your pantry, in the refrigerator, and other places that are easily accessible to you. So for instance, some people like to keep like a bowl of candy in their office for when visitors come. So I recommend taking that away as well.
Know your patterns.
I used to, every Friday, yay, it's Friday, and I would stop by the bakery and pick up, some desserts for myself, and I had to stop that. You might have to change some of the patterns in your life.
When do you have cravings?
Some other people, for example, might have specific times during the day where they're craving sweets. If you are aware of when that can occur, you can do things to help yourself through the cravings.
Hidden and added sugar.
These days, if you look at food labels of the things that you buy, you'll find a lot of hidden sugars in them. And so I recommend, for example, peanut butter, spaghetti sauce, a lot of salad dressings all have added sugar. So make sure you're reading the back of the label before you purchase anything.
And be careful with foods that are low fat or fat free, because often they'll add more sugar into that to give it the taste it needs. Replacing sugar.
Sometimes it helps when you're quitting to replace sugar with something else you can eat, hopefully not with more sugar.
Yeah, so we don't have traditional dessert after meals. We don't have cake or ice cream. We have fruit after every meal, and that's our dessert. And it still gives us the sweet flavor and the sweet taste that, a cookie or a brownie would give us. Yes, fruit has sugar, but the real key is the added sugars and the extra sugar that are added to things. So fruit is natural sugar, so it doesn't have the same, negative impacts as added sugar that we'll have in like a cookie.
And you don't always have to replace sugar with another food. You can always go for a walk instead.
Moderate versus completely quit.
For some people, if you have a little bit of, if you have a small cookie, once per week, it prevents you from having all the cookies. Versus for other people, if you have a little small piece of cookie, then that makes you eat all the cookies. So you have to kind of know which one you are. For me, for example, I had to completely quit sugar. I could not even eat a small cookie, because then I would just turn around the next day, start eating cupcakes and cakes, all of that, and then I would have problems. But he, on the other hand...
Yeah, so for me, I can go the moderate approach. Just recently we were at an event that had a bunch of desserts. They had some cakes and they had some cookies and brownies. And I had one a mini cupcake, really small, but this size. So that's the way I get my sweet
fix,
kick, but I keep it much more in moderation. Another way too is, if you are trying to moderately cut back, is share a dessert with someone versus eat the whole thing. Don't attach meaning to sugar.
A lot of times we use sugar to help us celebrate, right? Oh, I got through this, big project, I'm going to go and eat a big cupcake. There are other ways of celebrating your successes. Or another thing that people do is, oh, I had a terrible day. I had a terrible day at work, and to comfort myself, I'm going to eat a big cookie. What I'm advocating for here is to not attach a feeling to eating sugar.
Basically, don't associate eating sugar with a celebration or kind of a time of sorrow. Building willpower.
Going to need a lot of willpower to quit sugar, and because sugar is everywhere, like we said, and this is something that you're going to have to build up over time. At the very beginning, you're not going to have a lot of willpower. You're going to have cravings. You're going to want to eat sugar the minute you see it, but over time, as you build more strength and have more practice in saying no to sugar, you will be able to avoid cravings and falling for your cravings.
And here's where you can look at some of the tips we gave on the physical aspect of, what's the replacement for the sugar cravings you have? Can you do it more moderation as opposed to, supposed to eating, 2 scoops of ice cream, can you go down to a half a scoop of ice cream? So use some of those other tips to kind of help you through building up your willpower. Motivation to quit.
Quitting gets challenging. I think it's important to connect with what motivated you to begin with to quit. So for some people it's, has to do with diabetes. For some people it has to do with general health or energy levels. I specifically was dealing with a health issue where I had to quit sugar. I was getting, too much information, but I was getting yeast infections, and I was getting hives and rashes, and I eventually found out that by quitting sugar, I could avoid dealing with all of those health problems.
Dealing with setbacks.
So just understand that you will definitely have setbacks. You will definitely. I had multiple times where I would blow out in full body hives. Even after I knew that sugar was the issue, I still had multiple setbacks.
And in dealing with setbacks, it's important to acknowledge the setback. Be aware that, okay, I've been pretty good about not eating sugar, but I ate some sugar today. And that's okay. I think part of the journey to cutting out sugar is to, you're gonna have your ups and downs, but just sort of acknowledge and be aware of those ups and downs and be okay with it and just be like, okay, well, I had some sugar and maybe I had a bad reaction to it, but I'm gonna try to be better tomorrow, and I'm gonna use the lessons I've learned and move forward and not dwell on the fact that you had a setback.
And celebrate your successes.
Yes, exactly.
And just say, okay, well, you know what? Today, instead of eating 2 scoops of ice cream, I just had half a scoop. And that is progress. And to be happy with that.
Dealing with cravings.
One of the biggest issues is dealing with cravings. And so I had multiple ways of dealing with it. And sometimes I could just use one method. Sometimes I had to use all the methods. So the first method I used was prayer. And I would literally be praying for strength to avoid sugar. So another thing you can always do is to take a walk, drink some water, maybe go talk to somebody. Basically distract yourself. One of the most interesting methods that I employed was what some people call mindfulness, okay? But what I also call just being with yourself during the craving. I envisioned the craving like a wave. It would be kind of like I was a surfer on this wave of a craving. There's a really high point where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna run to the grocery store and grab a cookie. But then you'll notice that the wave comes down. And but this usually lasted less than 5 minutes. So if you can get through 5 minutes, you will probably be okay.
Yeah, basically, if you want to eat some ice cream, tell yourself, I'll come back in 5 or 10 minutes to eat the ice cream. And then let's see if you actually will. Because maybe you won't. Because maybe you'll move on to something else.
That's right.
Sugar is everywhere, at every event, every get-together, and celebration.
A lot of cutting back on sugar is dealing with the social aspect of sugar. So, you're going to a birthday party, brace for it. There's gonna be cakes, cupcakes, cookies, candy. Brace yourself. Sometimes eating a little before the party will help.
Learn how to politely say no thank you.
And you'll probably have to say it multiple times, and sometimes even after you say no, the people will still continue pushing sugar on you. So I think it helps to just have a plate of food. You have your plate of food, but it just doesn't have cake.
And it's okay to be honest too, be like,
true,
I'm trying to cut back, or in Amy's case, she could say, I break out with a rash, and then people understand a little bit more. It's okay to be honest. It's okay to, if you're comfortable with that, to say why you're not eating sugar or trying to cut back.
Or you don't have to give an explanation if you don't want to. Sometimes you don't want people in your business,
That's
right?
true.
And that's true too. So either it just depends on what is going to work for you, and it might take time to understand what that's going to be.
Yes. Feeling left out.
There was multiple situations where I would go out to eat with a friend and they would want to order dessert, but I couldn't. So the issue sometimes is they feel uncomfortable. Your friend will feel uncomfortable eating sugar in front of you, which that's nice of them, right? So you can always order like an herbal tea. You don't want to feel left out, and you don't want other people to feel awkward too, but you do want to stick with your goal of reducing or quitting sugar. It does take practice to understand what's going to work for you. There will be awkward social situations where you're going to have to say no and set some boundaries for yourself, and that can feel awkward. But like Cravings, 5 minutes go past, people will forget, and you'll have moved on.
If you want more videos about cancer survivorship and healthy living, please subscribe below.
Thank you for watching today.
Together we heal.